Hello everyone, welcome to this week's video from the Purple Penny. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine. The Purple Penny is a small family-owned coin and banknote dealer. We're in Mawson Lakes, which is in sort of the northern suburbs of Adelaide. About sort of 15 minutes north of Adelaide, about 5 minutes walk from a train station. Only a sort of 10 or 11 minute train ride from the middle of the city to get here. We've been here since 2019, coming up to our 7th birthday, and we've been doing these videos for about 6 years of that time. We try to do it this time every week, which is Monday at 12 o'clock Adelaide time. We don't do it on public holidays. If you're wondering what we do, we buy and sell coins, banknotes and collectibles via our store here in Mawson Lakes, which is open Wednesday to Saturday, or via our website, thepurplepenny.com. Mondays is when we do all the prep for these videos, plus all of our bookkeeping, plus Catherine catches up on the weekend's mail. The weekend is the busiest time for orders on our website, so she's usually busy most of the days on Monday doing that, which is what she's doing now. Now, it was our first week back. We'd had 2.5 weeks off, so last week was our first week back. It was very busy. As you can imagine, very busy, not a lot of time to get anything done when we're open. And I don't know whether we've actually said, but Jared has moved on to the next part of his life, so he's no longer with us, which means that it's fallen back onto Catherine and I to do all of the new product listings on the website again. So we are trying to get that done when we can, which just means that perhaps we won't get to do it as regularly as we did previously. New listings will appear on the website as we find time here and when we're at home. Sadly, we did manage to get a few website listings up yesterday on Sunday. And we'll just say a few hellos to people. Hello Sam, hello Ted, hello Peter, hello Tom, hello Gwen, hello Ray, hello JJ, hello Rand, and hello Kevin. Thank you everyone for joining in. In the news this week, we're going to start off with a couple of Scottish coins. First of all is what's believed to be the oldest known coin that was minted in Scotland. It's not the oldest Scottish coin, but it is the oldest known coin that was minted in current day Scotland. It was found by a Scottish metal detectorist in 2023 in a forest in a place called Pencuick. And the gentleman who found this coin was awarded £15,000, which is pretty close to $30,000 for finding this coin. He reported it to the Scottish Antiquities Scheme. It was then subsequently purchased by the National Museums of Scotland, and he was awarded £15,000 for finding that particular coin. Now, what makes it interesting is that it was minted in the name of King David I, who ruled Scotland from 1124 to 1153. King David was responsible for introducing the first Scottish coinage, but it was thought at least that for the first decade or two that Scottish coins were minted in Carlisle, which at that time was in Scotland but now is in England. And it turns out that this coin that this gentleman found in 2023 was actually minted in Edinburgh. It's believed to date to the late 1130s and it's thought to be the earliest known Scottish coin minted in current day Scotland, so that makes it a pretty significant find. It's currently held by the National Museums of Scotland. It's made of silver despite the colour, so for the first 200 years at least of Scottish coinage, all of the coins were silver. They minted in the first 200 years pennies, halfpennies and farthings. And silver does go this colour in time. It does go quite a black colour, but very significant coin detected there, and the finder was well rewarded for finding it. So interesting coin. Now, this morning while I was having my coffee, I fell down a Scottish coin rabbit hole after I looked into this. And we're going to follow up with another Scottish coin, and this is the first Scottish gold coin. So, as I just said previously, the first Scottish coins were minted by King David I, who ruled from 1124 to 1153, and for only about 200 years only silver coins were minted. And in 1346, which was what's that, about 220 years after the first Scottish coins were minted, King David II decided that it would be a good idea to invade England. He was supported by the French. Turns out that was not a good idea. It was a bad idea, and he was captured and held captive by the English King Edward III for 11 years. And during that time, King David II became aware of an English coin called a gold noble, and they were first introduced in 1344, just a couple of years before King David II was captured. The denomination of a noble was 6 shillings and 8 pence, and for some reason in Scotland that was known as a merk. Perhaps that's related to a mark, which is a sort of a Anglo-Saxon currency denomination. Anyway, when David was finally ransomed in 1357, if you're wondering what ransoming means, it means that the Scottish government paid to have him released by the English. So he was ransomed for 100,000 merks, which by any sum is a lot of money. It'd be about 600,000 shillings, 20 shillings to the pound, so a lot of money. When he was returned to Scotland, King David decided to introduce the Scottish noble, and it was imitated the English noble. You can see that Scottish noble there. It's got a castle on one side, a coat of arms on the other. Oh, it's not a castle, it's a ship on one side and a coat of arms on the other. So this particular first noble that was introduced in Scotland, there's only 4 of them known. Now, it's thought that that is the case for a couple of reasons. One is that the mintage numbers were very small, and the second is that King David probably created them to pay his own ransom, so most of them went to England and they were melted down. This particular one is just one of 4 known. It's held in the Hunterian Art Gallery. It was found in the 18th century in an excavated castle along with 199 other English gold nobles. So one of the rarest Scottish coins known and the first gold coin issued in Scotland. So we'll just say a few more hellos before we move on to the next news item. Hello Neil, thank you Catherine, who's watching out there, probably on her phone. Hello Shane, hello Ian, Jared. Jared's joining in, so welcome Jared, thanks for joining in. Hello Shane and hello Tony. Now the next item in the news is some new banknotes being introduced to Syria. Syria is obviously a troubled place, a place of conflict. It's been suffering heavy conflict in one form or another since 2011 when the Syrian civil war started, and of course the Syrian government was overthrown a few years ago. Conflict is still occurring between the current Syrian government and various rebel groups. But the current Syrian president, Ahmad al-Sharaa, has unveiled the first post-al-Assad banknotes. Now, the al-Assad regime ruled Syria from the 1960s until they were overthrown a couple of years ago. And portraits of the former dictator, al-Assad, who was an English-educated guy, have been removed from the new currency and replaced with various agricultural symbols, including roses, wheat, olives, and other things. Now, since 2011, since the civil war started, the Syrian exchange rate, if you're wondering, Syria deals in Syrian pounds, has gone from about £50 per US dollar to £11,000 per US dollar. And that means that the people of Syria at the moment need to go and do their shopping with garbage bags full of money to be able to buy anything, which is never a great thing. Now, what these new notes have done is what's called a redenomination. I mean, it's effectively a revaluation, but they've removed 2 zeros from all of the notes. So the £500 note that you can see there used to be a £50,000 note. £50,000 is about $5 US, so that's about a $5 US value note there. So it's going to mean that one, people will hopefully reevaluate the value of the currency and have more confidence in it, and 2, it's going to mean that citizens don't have to carry around so many notes. And of course, the other thing is that the Syrian government wants people to start using their own currency to regain confidence in it and stop using US dollars, which is fairly common in countries that are undergoing turmoil or countries that are undergoing economic crisis. So interesting little bit of news there. And again, it just shows you that coins and banknotes really are deeply involved in social history. These notes are issued to try and solve a crisis in that particular country. All right, a few more hellos before we go on to the topic of the day. Hello Paul, hello Tony, hello Mick, hello Graham, hello Jason, hello Michael. So thank you everyone for joining in today. We've got a good crowd today. Now, what I thought I'd do is have a deep dive into the 1927 Parliament Florin. Why? Because we posted up a few for sale on the website last week. We had a number of them graded in August last year. They all came from the same hoard. We bought a hoard of them, I don't know, a couple of years ago. It was a long time between PCGS submissions for us. And it's just interesting to look at this particular coin, firstly because it is probably regarded as the most beautiful Australian pre-decimal coin that was created. And it is the pre-decimal florin that issued by George V that is the most affordable. Most mint state pre-decimal florins of George V are unaffordable, but this is affordable, and we'll just look at the reasons why that might be the case. Now, just bring up the slides here. So there's the Parliament Florin there. It's probably a coin that you are familiar with. Portrait of King George V on the left there, and you can see that is a different portrait than used on the rest of his florins. Mostly the florins have a portrait of Bertram McKennell, who did actually design this portrait as well. The centenary florin has a portrait of George Kruger Gray. This is the only coin that this portrait was used on in Australia. Now the reverse depicts Parliament House there, old Parliament House, but of course in 1927 it was a new Parliament House, so this coin was issued to recognise the opening of new Parliament House in Canberra. And below that we've got some crossed maces. We'll go into what they are, and then the date there, which is quite unusual. It's on a raised dome, but then the date is actually in cuse. The coin is struck as usual out of 11.3 grams of 92.5% silver, as all florins prior to 1946 were. And you can just see a comparison there of the depiction of Parliament House there with a picture I lifted off of Wikimedia. So has quite an Art Deco feel to it, this coin, and as I said, they are readily available in high grade, and by high grade I mean EF or better, which is very much not the case with the rest of King George V florins. Most King George V florins are not available in high grade. Very unusual to see any of them in VF or better, and I even include the common dates like 1931 and 36 in that. Now what is interesting about this coin is the fact that they are available in high grade. And how can you pick a high grade one from a low grade one? Well, first up we would probably want to have a look at just the nomenclature of the coin, so just some areas of it that we need to understand. So first of all, you look at the crown. Now I will just go ahead and say that you don't look at the crown on this coin, unlike other King George V florins where wear does happen on the crown first, and most people do discuss the condition of a George V florin in terms of pearls and diamonds and things like that. You do not discuss the condition of a Parliament florin in terms of the condition of the crown, because the crown on this design isn't the first place to wear. So that's number one. You do occasionally see Parliament florins for sale described as having 8 pearls and centre diamonds and things like that, but that's not how they wear, so it doesn't really mean anything. The thing that you will see discussed most is the steps. So the Parliament House steps there, and I've zoomed in on this one. This is a nice example. It's got 3 steps there. And interestingly, this has more to do with the quality of the strike rather than the wear. The steps aren't the first place to wear on a coin, but what they are is they're first placed to wear on the die. And what does that mean? It means that the die deforms as more and more coins are struck, and finer details such as these steps wear out on the die, and you end up with subsequent coins not with well-defined steps. So in the last 10 years or so, there has been a bit of a fixation amongst the collector community on the quality of the steps of these coins, and it really has to do more with whether it's an early strike or not, rather than wear. This one here, as Todd has said there, is a three-stepper. There are 3 steps there, but often the coins only have 1 step or even no steps, because that part of the die does wear out first, and even uncirculated coins have no steps or very few steps on them at all. On the reverse there, just above the date, we have what's called crossed maces. And why are they called maces? Well, because maces used to be balls of metal on the ends of sticks that you hit people over the heads with, but these days primarily what they are is ceremonial items that are carried by, in the Australian Parliament at least, by the Sergeant of Arms, and the Sergeant of Arms of Australian Parliament still carry those maces that are shown there when Parliament is opened. So that's why they're called maces. And the most unusual thing that most people note about this particular coin is the date. So the date is in cuse on a raised dome, and that is very unusual. I can't think of any other pre-decimal coin where that's the case. Some people think it's so unusual they think the date's been engraved on there. It has that sort of look to it, but of course it hasn't. It is struck there, so it is quite an unusual feature on a coin. You don't see in cuse writing on coins very often, in fact hardly ever. I can't think of too many examples. There's some Dutch coins I can think of that have it, commemorative coins. So of course this was Australia's first commemorative coin. We think about a Captain Cook 50-cent piece, a Silver Jubilee 50-cent piece, Weary Dunlop 50-cent piece. Well, it all started here in 1927 with this particular coin. This is where it all started. Now, what are the first places to wear on a 1927 florin? Well, on the obverse, it is the top of the king's ear. That's the first place to go. That's the highest point on the obverse design, so that's where I would look first. Then the tip of the moustache wears out after that. On the reverse, it's the clamshell there at the top of, over the top of Parliament House. There's the first place to wear out, and the date. Also the tops of the maces, they tend to wear out first as well, so that's where I'd be looking. But the easiest way to tell if a Parliament florin is worn is to look at the condition of the fields. Now, I've said this many times before, but when the fields get disturbed, the luster of the fields breaks, and you end up with luster in the protected areas. So that might be close to the king's portrait and close to the maces, and then close to the legends. But in the areas of the fields, if you're wondering what the fields are, they're the flat parts of the design that aren't the portrait and the letters. The luster in the fields is broken, and what I've shown in the images there is, on the left is an uncirculated coin, and on the right is a coin that I graded as about EF or EF, I can't remember exactly. But if you look at the luster on the coin on the left and compare that with the luster on the coin on the right, especially on the obverse, if you look around the letters GIVS on the coin on the right, you can actually see some luster still there. But if you just look at the fields just to the right of that, you can see that it's dull and grey. That means that there's no luster there. So this coin is circulated. You don't need to know where the high points are on a coin most of the time to know if it's circulated or not. There's no magic source to grading coins. There's no secret source. There's no magic to it. I guess there's a bit of an art to it, but you don't necessarily need to know the design of a coin particularly well to tell if it's circulated or not. And in this particular coin here, it's very easy to tell if it's circulated or not, and you don't need to know anything about it at all. And that's just by looking at the condition of the fields and looking for the break in the luster. Right. In addition to the 2 million circulation coins that were made of this particular coin, There were also about 400 proofs made. A proof is a different way of making a coin. Uncirculated coins made for circulation, are made one way. Proof coins are made in a different manner. So, for example, this particular proof coin was made. It was struck on specially prepared blanks, specially polished blanks. It was also struck with dies that were specially prepared. So in the particular case of the dies used to strike the proof Parliament Florins, the devices, or the portrait, and the Parliament House and arms around that are polished. Okay, so they have quite a mirrored look to them, and the fields are polished, so they're covered in die polish lines, and that's quite different to the coins used to strike circulation coins. Those dies were not specially prepared. So, and they were probably struck multiple times, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and that's to ensure that the design was fully struck up. And again, that's quite different to circulation coins. Circulation coins are struck usually for speed and efficiency rather than quality of strike. So how can you tell if you have a proof coin? There are some telltales on the dies. So for example, all the proofs have 3 defined steps below Parliament House, and each of the steps is separated by an incuse line. So there's a very fine incuse line in the middle of each step that is not present on the circulation coins. There's a tiny little die chip in the rim denticles above the A of Australia on the reverse of the coin. And then finally, there are distinctive patterns of die polish visible on the reverse between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and on the obverse between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. What's die polish? Die polish is what happens when the tradesmen in the mint polish up the dies, and they leave, you might use a fine wire brush or something like that to polish it up, and that leaves tiny incuse scratches on the die. And then when the coins are struck, what you get raised lines on the struck coin, and that's called die polish, and those are quite visibly apparent on the proofs. Now, one of the most common questions we get asked here on the phone, via email, whatever it happens to be, is I've got a Parliament Florin, it must be a proof, because of course you've got to have the most valuable one. No one ever does have the most valuable one. So if you have a Parliament Florin and you found it in a drawer, or in your pop's old collection, or in your nan's old collection, or your dad's old collection, it isn't a proof, it's a circulation coin. There are only 400 of them struck. The proof's 2 million circulation coins. The chances of finding a proof in circulation as a circulation coin are virtually zero. They were sold specifically to collectors, so something would have to go horrifically wrong for a proof one to end up in a bag of circulation coins. I've never owned one of these proofs. They used to sell for a lot more than what they do now with the GFC, and then the collapse of the rare coin company in Western Australia a decade or more ago. The price of these coins really fell, and you can get a perfectly nice example for between $5,000 and $10,000. If you want a top graded one, then you'd be looking at $30,000 or something, but they used to regularly sell for $30,000 to $50,000, which, coins like this, they go up and down. They go up and down with demand, and if the demand is low, then the price will drop. So I'm going to say a few more hellos here. Hello Alan, hello Mick. Tom says, cannot luster be lost on unk coins? Well, if they're heavily toned, then yes, it can, but you'll still see a difference in the texture of the fields. Even if they're heavily toned, it is still that disturbance in the fields is still apparent on circulated coins. And hello Taz, thanks for joining in. Right, so what I thought I'd finish off with is why these are so common, these 1927 Parliament Florins in high grade, and I'll show you some PCGS figures to prove that. Right, let's see if we can work this out here. Where's my PCGS figures? There they are. Right, So this is the PCGS population report for the 1927 Parliament Florin, but it's also the population report for the 1927 coat of arms Florin, because of course in 1927 they struck a standard design florin, and the Australian public had seen the standard design florin since 1910. So they'd been struck, I'm just going to make sure I don't say something stupid here. Yeah, they'd been struck every year from 1910 to 1927. So the standard design florin was well known. It wasn't remarkable. Interestingly, the mintage of the standard coat of arms florin is 1.42 million. So it's lower than the 1927 florin, but it's not hugely lower. Let's have a look at how many 1927 coat of arms florins PCGS has graded in mint state. Well, it turns out they've graded 101. And if you're wondering, that is 0.00007% of the total mintage. Now, if you compare that to the 1927 Parliament Florin, there's been 632 graded in mint state, or 0.000316% of the total mintage. So, according to the PCGS population figures at least, it seems like you're going to be 4.4 times more likely to encounter a mint state Parliament Florin than a coat of arms 1927 florin. In reality, it's probably a lot higher than that, because dealers like us, Catherine and I, we are selective about what we send. And what does that mean? It means that we might send an MS, what we consider to be an MS62 1927 coat of arms florin, but we wouldn't send an MS62 Parliament House florin, because financially at least it's not worthwhile. To give you an idea of values, a mint state 1927 florin MS62 is $1,000 plus. That's a coat of arms florin. And a mint state MS62 Parliament House florin would probably only be worth $125. So commercially, it's not worthwhile sending low mint state Parliament House florins, whereas it is worthwhile. So, in reality, it's probably the number of mint state Parliament House florins is probably 10 times or 15 times the number of Parliament House of 1927 coat of arms florins. Why? Well, the answer is as old as time. If you find something new, you put it to one side, and the Australian public put these to one side when they receive them in their change. So as a consequence, we've had many dozens of mint state 1927 florins coat of many dozens of 1927 Parliament House florins come through the shop in the last 7 years. Probably we've had less than 5 mint state 1927 coat of arms florins come through. They are much harder to find simply because people didn't put them to one side. Now, that you can draw the same analogy with 1984 dollar coins. They were new to the Australian public, so everyone kept them. They put them in their money boxes. 1970 Captain Cook 50-cent pieces. Everyone kept them. They were new. They put them in their money boxes. 1988 $2 coins. They were new. People put them in their money boxes. There aren't new 1984 coins being released by the Mint or being released by banks, or 1970 Captain Cook coins. It's because everyone put them to one side, the same as they did with these 1927 Parliament florins. If you are looking for a George V florin and you want a lovely mint state one, then you get an MS64 Parliament florin for $300 to $350, which is, other than perhaps the 1931 coat of arms florin, will be the cheapest one that you can get. So that's Parliament House florin. It's what I think is Australia's prettiest coin, and I include all the decimal coins. I actually have one in my collection. I have two actually, and for me that's very unusual. I don't have many pre-decimal coins in my collection. I think they're a beautiful coin, and they tone, so the silver changes colour on them beautifully, much more so than any other Australian pre-decimal coin. And if you go and have a look at our website, there are some pretty ones up there at the moment, and we always share them out on Facebook because I'm very partial to them. Right, that's the 1927 Parliament Florin. I hope someone learnt something from that. I enjoyed this today. I do like that coin, and it is a gateway drug to pre-decimal florins as far as I'm concerned, because they are beautiful and they are quite inexpensive. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm just checking it's not the last Monday of the month. Although there is an Anzac Day, Australia Day holiday coming up. We don't do videos on public holidays. Right, if you've got anything you'd like me to talk about in these videos, please send us a message, send us an email, give us a call, and I'll do my best to talk about it. Thank you everyone who joined in today. Good audience today, good comments, and thank you everyone for watching and interacting with me. And hello to everyone on YouTube, where these videos go up later. All of our videos are up on our YouTube channel. And I guess I'll see you all next week. Have a safe and happy week, and happy collecting, and bye for now.